Previously on The Assassin Reborn as the Duke's son, we saw how the protagonist, realizing that his subordinate wasn't watching over Mia, figured he must be in trouble. And he was right. Brian had been caught by a gang of bullies led by Barrett, who had been humiliated by the protagonist and was now out for revenge by hurting those close to him. They beat the living daylights out of Brian, who had no way to defend himself, before carrying out their twisted plan and sending him back to the protagonist as a warning. But before we start, remember, everything you're about to see is a work of fiction. Do not replicate or attempt any violent or dangerous actions you hear about. With that said, let's get into the story. Barrett wants to prove he's not playing around. He orders one of his men to finish the job. But before that can happen, the protagonist arrives, cutting the scene short. Barrett feels a chill run down his spine. The lion immediately recognizes the bully. Meanwhile, Brian, barely conscious, watches him arrive. Barrett doesn't show any fear. He truly believes this time he can take him down, and that only makes it more exciting for the protagonist. Without a second thought, he jumps down from the structure where he was standing, activating his dark mist ability. In an instant, he wipes out all of Barrett's mercenaries, sending their lifeless bodies flying through the air. Now only Barrett remains, from fearless to terrified in a matter of seconds. Memories of their last encounter flood his mind. He can't believe how powerful the lion really is. Fueled by rage, Barrett lashes out, launching a fireball spell. But before it can even reach the protagonist, the lion strikes first. One blow sends him flying. Barrett lands at the end of the alley, barely holding himself together. The lion approaches, disappointed that Barrett never changed. But why does he even care? Well, let's take a look back at Barrett's past life. Barrett was once the eldest prince of the Kingdom of Garum, infamous for his twisted behavior. Bullying people in his past life was the least of his crimes. He used to burn small animals alive for fun. But the final straw? He killed one of his classmates, calling it magic practice. Eventually, the kingdom issued a purification order against him. When the lion infiltrated Barrett's estate after his exile, he couldn't believe what he found. A mountain of corpses piled up in the basement. That day, he decided to end Barrett's life in the most excruciating way possible. And the one thing he'll never forget? The way Barrett smiled. He was satisfied with everything he had done. Now back to the present. The lion thinks killing him now would be too merciful. Nothing could make up for all the horrors of his past life. So he grabs him by the jaw and recreates the mana marble, the very torture Barrett inflicted on his own victims. Barrett begins to panic. He knows exactly what this means. He knows the unbearable pain that comes with it. But the lion doesn't care. He shoves it down his throat. Barrett struggles, his body writhing in agony. Meanwhile, a watcher, one of Askel's spies, sees everything. He turns to report back immediately. But Lily stops him, pressing a dagger against his throat. Brian, still recovering, feels ashamed of his weakness. The lion gives him a disappointed look. He wants to know, does Brian really have what it takes to be his subordinate? That fight was unwinnable, and yet he stayed. Brian explains his loyalty, his reason for not running away. But the lion reminds him, he doesn't need a foolish subordinate. They'll finish this conversation later. Right now, he knows the instructor is watching. He calls her down. She has a gift for him. But the lion already knew she had been keeping an eye on him for a while now. She acknowledges his talent. His power surpasses any mercenary. His intelligence lets him negotiate with the Academy's dean. His mental strength allows him to wield the demon sword. He is the perfect successor. But she warns him he can't keep getting away with this. People will start getting suspicious. He takes her advice. But he has no intention of letting some idiot like Barrett lay a hand on what's his. She chuckles but lets it slide. Lily tells him to take care of the spy while she handles the rest of the goons. The spy is trembling. He knows the lion might kill him, but that would be too easy. The spy assumes interrogation is pointless. He won't say a word. But what he doesn't realize is that the lion already knows who he is. He remembers him from his past life. This guy was Askel's most loyal subordinate. He was constantly jealous of Thalian's relationship with Askel. Could he be a problem in the future? Possibly. But killing him now would be a waste. He could be useful. So the lion casts a spell shadow persona. Dark energy pours into the spy's mouth. Meanwhile, at the Academy's training stables, Leximus and Celine are locked in an intense sparring match, both giving it their all. but Leximus always wins. She's humble about it, even though the princess insists she call her by her name when they're alone. Then they spot the lion training too, except he's beating the hell out of Brian. Blow after blow, Brian can't dodge a single one. The lion acknowledges his subordinate's insane endurance. He'll be useful later. Brian, exhausted, refuses to give up. He won't let another Barrett situation happen again. But he's not strong enough yet. Brian asks about Askell's spy. The lion reassures him there's nothing to worry about. That evening, they all witnessed what happened. The spy was completely consumed by Thalian's dark magic, a 9-star spell from his past life. It grants the body a personality of its own, allowing him to control it. When he releases him, he asks about his new personality. And like a truth serum, the spy spills everything. The lion asks about his master. The spy replies, Askell used to be his master, but now he belongs to the lion. Absolute, unwavering loyalty. That's why the lion doesn't doubt him. Later, Prince Barrett is found outside the infirmary, beaten beyond recognition. Magic, gone forever. He couldn't even say who did it. Leximus, however, reacts differently than expected. She isn't relieved, not happy that Barrett lost his power. Before anyone can question it, Mia falls from the sky, calling for her father. The lion panics. Wasn't Kiram supposed to be watching her? Turns out, she just fell asleep. Mia lands in the princess's arms, excited to see her dad again. Celine, meanwhile, is completely frozen. She just heard Mia call him Dad. The awkwardness is real. Jealousy explodes in Celine. She demands answers. The lion isn't ready to explain. So later, he tells her a little white lie. Celine relaxes, relieved Mia isn't actually his daughter. This situation is completely out of control. Even Brian is caught up in the mess. But Celine reassures them. She won't tell a soul. Her loyalty surprises them all. But it's nothing to be surprised about. They've always had his back. Leximus, who has no friends, confirms he won't tell anyone. The lion feels grateful for Celine's loyalty. She confesses that she feels a bit bad for Mia. She won't fit in anywhere. Even if she wants to take care of him, it's a start, thinks the protagonist. Celine takes the opportunity to look at him. Though she tries to hide it a little, the lion agrees and she blushes. She tells him it'll be their little secret. That excites her even more. It's time to head out and they say goodbye to the others. But Leximus notices Celine isn't moving. She can't contain herself, knowing she'll be closer to the protagonist more often. Kiram wakes up from her sleep and asks what happened. He scolds her for being careless. Brian suggests taking her out for a walk so she doesn't get bored being cooped up. Doesn't seem like a bad idea. Meanwhile, we see 2 high-ranking dragon creatures. They stop when they catch a whiff of something foul. One asks his companion about the location. She tells him they're near the human city. He recognizes it as the Academy's city, so he decides to investigate that stench and the aura he feels. As a dragon, he can't just let it slide. Outside the city, the group is gathered. We see Mia, excited to explore everything. The lion enjoys watching her happy. They're far enough for her to enjoy herself freely. Kiram compliments him on being such a good father and suggests he should find a mother for Mia, like the princess. Before he can even respond to that, both sense someone approaching. It's the dragon that disgusts Mia. Brian grabs the girl and dodges the lightning strike aimed at him. The lion makes sure she's okay, then tells them to hide behind him. In a wide shot, we see that lightning wasn't just any attack. It was the creatures themselves descending from the sky. They were the ones who almost obliterated Mia. Brian glares at them with hatred as he shields the girl. The silver high dragon, let's call him Loki, and the red high dragon, her name is Catalina. They can't understand how a dragon's daughter could have such a disgusting scent. They ask the protagonist if he owns her and that demonic blade. Kiram takes offense at their disdainful tone. Catalina is furious at being talked back to by an inferior. Loki tries to prevent a fight. After all, dragons see humans as lesser beings. But he still wants to investigate Mia, the half-breed. She's terrified they might take her away. And if they hand her over, he'll spare their lives. Obviously, the protagonist has no intention of negotiating and yells at him to shut up. Annoyed by his response, Loki dares him to say that again. Without a shred of fear, he repeats it. Loki lets out an ironic laugh, and in mere seconds, the protagonist is hit with a powerful attack. He dodges it effortlessly, then tells Brian to stay back. We see how that attack completely obliterated everything in its path. Loki rises into the air, disappointed that these inferior creatures don't appreciate their lives. He casts his spell manifestation of the demonic blade. Catalina is shocked to see it. They recognize it as the power of exile. Loki believes that no matter how much power the protagonist has, he's still just a human. With a single move, the protagonist vanishes as if teleporting. Loki is stunned by his speed and barely dodges his lethal strike. He finds it utterly disrespectful that the lion thinks he's his equal, so he fires a spell straight at him. A shockwave. We see the sky consumed by his immense mana. The protagonist is bombarded by the relentless attacks with force. When they hit the ground, the impact is devastating. But he's faster than that attack thanks to his mistflight technique. Using another spell, Raging Miststorm, Catalina defends with her fire barrier. She wants to take over the fight now, but Loki warns her. The red high dragon ignores him. She believes that a great dragon's accumulated power is far stronger than a mere human. But she wasn't expecting the protagonist's 8-petal spell. He launches a flurry of attacks, shattering her barrier. She's speechless. The lion doesn't intend to stop and follows up with another consecutive strike, ending Catalina's life. Loki is terrified. He has no idea who he's up against. He can't believe he's this powerful. He demands to know who he is. When the lion shows no intention of answering, Loki officially acknowledges him as an opponent. He watches as the great spell is cast, remembering polymorph, a spell that strips a dragon of its human form, reverting it to its original state. His body morphs, each limb transforming, until he finally becomes a full dragon. The protagonist attacks, knowing this is his most vulnerable moment. He rises above him. Loki, furious, has no idea what Thalion's next move will be. But the lion already knows where to strike, Polymorph's weak spot, a direct attack on a specific point in the head. No time to regret or escape. He unleashes his final spell, Unbreakable Tree Root, ending Loki's life. Blood and mana rain from the sky. After that epic battle, Brian checks on his young master's health. He stares at him, completely in awe of what he just did. He covers Mia's eyes, because the lion is offering her the flesh of the dragon he just killed. Brian is slightly horrified. Meanwhile, Askel's subordinate, now controlled by the protagonist's dark mana, delivers false information, making the elder prince believe that a mysterious group is protecting the protagonist. He hesitates slightly, since his subordinate doesn't seem like the same person as before. He was about to take his leave, but is interrupted. Askel watches him carefully. He deduces that this test is because his loyalty is starting to be questioned. So he bows deeply before Askel. He smiles, thanks her, and tells her she may leave. A bit nervous, she steps away. He doesn't want his master to doubt him. As he turns the doorknob, he finds a woman standing there. She's Master Thalion's maid. He was about to get mad, thinking she was snooping around, but Askel insists that he called her. He wants to ask her for a favor. She blushes a little. He's never asked her for anything like this before. Meanwhile, deep within a temple, magical sapphires are discussing the disappearance of Loki and Catalina. They argue that the energy of an 8-star dragon shouldn't just vanish like that. One of them shows that their magical stones have lost their glow, revealing that all that remained nearby were traces of battle, nothing else. They know that, for something like this to happen, the person responsible must have the dark attribute, and the only one they know capable of killing a dragon is Bartolome. But he doesn't have dark powers. One of them brings up our protagonist, pointing out that he's the only one in the academy with that attribute. They also mention the rumors that he survived a dragon on the battlefield. Some believe he might be responsible for eliminating the traffickers. Those traffickers provided them with experimental materials. That's how our protagonist caught their attention. Now they're sending Anna, the granddaughter, to communicate with the lion. Meanwhile, at the Royal Academy, Celine brought them a cake as a gift. Mia couldn't wait to eat. The protagonist just watches the scene unfold. He knows he has to stay hidden. If the dragons could sense her, they wouldn't hesitate to return. As he reflects on what he's accomplished, and the things he's determined to prevent from happening, Celine looks at him, pleased. She notices the happiness on Thalion's face and asks why. He just smiles. Elsewhere, Louis Drakemantle visits the Everflame mansion. The Prince of the Empire. He chats with an old friend, getting ahead on their agenda. He asks, when will you explore the continent like your sister, Alice? Askel hasn't planned on doing so yet, but he's worried about wherever his sister might be. Louis doubts that. He asks, "Aren't you afraid she might surpass you?" Askell looks at him and says those are dangerous words. The prince keeps the conversation going, asking about his brother, the lion. As they drink, the duke's son mentions that his father has taken an interest in the protagonist. Something Louis doesn't like. He thinks he's useless. Askell says it's just a matter of time before he can be put to use. That reassures the prince. He also offers him a new drink, says he discovered it in the slums. It's an exquisite elixir. 2 years passed. During that time, the lion kept a low profile. He adapted to the academy. Alice returned from her journey. She heads to the academy, arriving at Dean Bartolome's office. He welcomes her warmly, asks if she enjoyed her journey. She says she was in Fruina, a land where humans aren't welcome. Took her a year just to adapt. So, by the end of that long journey, she made a decision. He wonders what it is. Alice will join the Knights of Light. She wants to carry on the family legacy. And she also wants to check on her brothers, especially the lion. She thinks he's too shy. The dean laughs. He finds that amusing. Even the lion himself finds it funny. She turns to look at him. He's grown so much since she left. The protagonist missed his sister. As they walk through the city, she tells him how much he's changed. He's even as tall as she is now, and soon he'll be taller. She really missed him. The lion remembers that day clearly. It was the last time he saw his sister alive. She asks if he'll come home for summer break, but he tells her she'd be the only one welcoming him there. Alice thinks that's the reason he hasn't returned in 2 years, though he says it's also because of his brother and other things. Margaret, who's under the Duke's protection, going back there would be torture, so he plans to return once he graduates from the academy. Besides, she's friends with Kaler. She doesn't know what he's talking about. He tells her that their own stepbrother tried to get rid of him. She can't believe it. Brian interrupts to confirm it, and introduces his guardian knight. She spent the afternoon telling her sister everything. Her sister, horrified by what she heard, had never known any of it. Alice is furious with them. The protagonist isn't surprised by that. She wants to do something about it, but it's not something the protagonist cares much about. Kaler doesn't seem to be reflecting on his actions. His sister hugs him enthusiastically. She tells him he can count on her for anything, and that from now on she will protect him. She has to leave for something important and asks him to take care of himself. Brian, excited, watches the scene unfold. Suddenly, he gets a hug from Alice. She wants him to keep looking after her, just like he has been. But he immediately feels a dangerous glare for hugging the protagonist's sister. The evening falls. She bids them both farewell. He doesn't remember the last time he saw her so angry. It was a long time ago in his past life, back when he was dueling against his brother. His brother was insulting him, calling him an orphan. The lion had already lost and wanted to stop, but stopping wasn't part of his plan. He kept attacking over and over. The only reason he stopped was because Alice told him to, and she demanded that he apologize. He's lost in thought, reflecting on that moment and the trouble brewing in House Everflame. He knows he needs to uncover the truth about his family, if he wants to protect them from the miserable future that awaits them. His thoughts are interrupted by 2 letters he just received. Brian informs him that one is from the academy and the other from a janitor. He picks up the janitor's letter first. The other one doesn't interest him much. He already knows it's from the palace. And he's right. The letter bears the imperial seal. Kiram wants to know what it is. He reveals that it's an invitation to a banquet that takes place around this time of year. And the other one is an assassination order. The target, Drenian. He recalls that it was a huge incident that took place during the banquet. Drenian was the younger brother of the current empress. It was a massive shock for everyone. His sword asks if he's going. The protagonist confirms he has business there, even though in his past life that mission fell to Lily. The other letter is from Celine. Kiram gets excited and assumes it's a love letter, but with the demonic sword's restriction, Kiram is slammed into the ground. Mia peeks into the scene, saying she's hungry. Brian calls his master over to see what he's witnessing, something that leaves him stunned. He's grown much faster in this short time. Meanwhile, at Everflame Manor, Alice rushes to the door. The servants are stunned by her sudden arrival. Alice demands to know where the Duchess is. She's in her chamber, reading. She hears the frantic voices calling for her. She realizes it's Alice. She wants to greet her, but she's nervous about Alice's demeanor. Alice raises her hand, and slaps her hard. Everyone is stunned by such an apparently sudden reaction. The Duchess demands to know why she did that. Without hesitation, Alice tells her exactly what she tried to do to the lion. Inside, she's dying of nerves, but she tries to play the victim. However, when Alice hears her asking for proof, it only confirms what the protagonist told her. She is immediately surrounded by royal guards. The Duchess's order is clear. She wants Alice thrown out. The guards apologize to the Duke's daughter but insist that she must leave. She anticipates their every move. With a single spell, she paralyzes them all. Margaret realizes Alice has mastered elemental magic and can easily take down the guards. She warns Alice not to come any closer, but Alice is determined. She knows the whole truth. She reminds her of everything she ordered 2 years ago. Yet the Duchess denies it, claiming Alice has lost her mind. She wants Alice to shut up and prepare because William will find out everything. She intends to end her. And then she leaves the room. Margaret suddenly realizes she doesn't know what's been happening to the Duke all this time, because William has been protecting Kaler at all costs. He admits as much in his own chambers. Alice can't believe her own father doesn't care. He claims he always knew his son was fine. She insists that thanks to the knight Brian, he's safe. William smiles, telling her Brian was just a child among those knights, which means that the lion took them all down. As he approaches her, he tells her she doesn't know the lion at all, and hands her a letter. It's an invitation to the imperial family's banquet. He tells her not to worry about the lion and to relax. She's in shock over what just happened. As she leaves, she can't stop thinking about why she shouldn't worry about her 13-year-old brother. A knight calls her name. When she turns around, she lights up with joy. It's Mary welcoming her back. They embrace tightly. It's been so long since she last saw her. Mary is a high-ranking knight of the Knights of Light. She was Alice's exclusive maid, mentor, and friend. He tells her they'll be changing the scenery a bit. He invites her to the imperial palace. On the way inside the carriage, Mia is fascinated by the sights outside. The lion just asks her to conceal her extremities, something she's not too happy about. But she does it anyway. She has the ability to hide all her dragon-like features. He reminds her how his daughter is supposed to act at the banquet. She is Thalion's maid, Mia, though he suspects she'll cause trouble. At that moment, the carriage comes to a halt. Brian informs them that bandits are blocking the road. They don't look friendly at all. The protagonist knows it's nothing serious and tells him to take care of it. He reassures his daughter that it's nothing to worry about. One of the bandits falls victim to a powerful attack. His accomplices watch in shock as he's defeated, so they all attack at once. The protagonist sighs and casts a spell called Serial Slash. With a single sword strike, he takes them all out. He sheathes his sword. Sir Brian is no weakling anymore, but he has to get back to the carriage. And so they continue their journey. Meanwhile, at Lily's office, a thick stack of papers is delivered, a list of banquet guests. Even though there are more people than expected, the mission must go on. She asks why there's so much hatred toward the man she's been assigned to eliminate. Lily tells her he's a predator who preys on defenseless women, using his magic to take advantage of them. And that bastard is her fiancé. In another invitation, she notices a genius whose elemental attributes are all at 20%, despite having a fragile body. She is the granddaughter of Garam, the head of the Mage Association, Anna. She's nervous. She's never appeared in public before. Her assistant mentions overhearing that it was a direct order from the president of the association. She knows something must be going on. They've finally arrived at their destination. The group is now strolling through the city's marketplace. Mia, completely amazed by everything, accidentally bumps into an old man. He scolds her to watch where she's going. She apologizes, offering to make it up to him. The old man insists it's not a big deal, but the protagonist tells her to step away from him. He remembers that she doesn't know much about the world. Brian notices her eyes shifting back to normal. She's also emitting an aura. If she keeps this up, she'll be exposed soon. So he orders his knight to take her to a restaurant immediately. Turns out, those strange reactions were just hunger. At the restaurant, she devours plate after plate of food. Good thing the protagonist brought plenty of money. Suddenly, he senses a strange mana presence. Anna enters the restaurant. She walks up to their table and says the protagonist's name. With a seemingly friendly smile, he immediately wonders how she knows his name. She sits beside him without answering the question. then introduces herself as a student at the academy. The protagonist finds her name somewhat familiar but tells her he's not interested in students from other years. She tries to gain Thalian's trust, which she still doesn't have. Mia and Brian just watch. Anna comments that his knight and maid seem very close, even sharing a table with him. The protagonist replies that it doesn't make sense to eat separately. So he's suspicious. Why is a complete stranger suddenly flattering him? She brings up the banquet they'll be attending, and then takes her leave. What stands out to him is that she's invited. She must be nobility. She leaves after nothing more than introductions. But before walking away, she gives him her full name, Anna Rainreaver. Now the protagonist remembers. She's the granddaughter of the head of the Mage Association. In his past life, she died young after joining the academy, though he never knew whether it was due to her fragile body or because of human experiments. He realizes her future is bound to change because of the people she interacts with in this life. He also remembers that on the night of the banquet, there will be a blood moon. Meanwhile, Celine finishes getting dressed. She asks Leximus for his opinion on her appearance. He tells her she looks beautiful, no doubt, though internally, he's exhausted from giving opinions on every dress she tries on. But she's still unsure about this dress. So Leximus makes her blush by telling her that the protagonist will love seeing her in it. Celine yells at him not to make fun of her. A maid arrives at her room to deliver a gift. It's directly from her brother. She's surprised when she sees the necklace. Leximus comments that the lion will probably like that too, making her even angrier. The time for the banquet has arrived, where all the nobles and high-ranking figures are invited. We see the protagonist waiting for his target to arrive, though he notices his brother's subordinate is there, which means he is too. The subordinate informs him that they should leave. A lot of people are in danger, including him. Askel ordered him to leave before the banquet starts due to the surprise he has planned. He can't believe that the person responsible for the banquet disaster in his past life was his brother. The lion thanks him and tells him to withdraw. The subordinate tells him to stay safe. The protagonist smiles, because he already knows what his twisted brother plans to do that night. Kiram asks if he's worried about innocent people dying. He says no, but he will have to postpone the mission. He uses a psychological influence spell to communicate with Lily telepathically, informing her that the purification will be put on hold. She demands to know why. He tells her the intel he received makes another matter a higher priority, so he'll verify the area first. Lily asks why he's so sure about his information. The protagonist assures her that he only had his suspicions confirmed, though her fiancé will still be eliminated. She wants to know how he knew he was her fiancé. As he leaves, she decides to wait for his explanation later. From the background, a girl calls out to the instructor. Lily recognizes her. It's Alice. She wants to say hi. Lily knows this is bad. She could get caught up in the incident. At that moment, the target approaches them both, flattering them, though it's clear Lily isn't pleased. It's Lily's perverted fiancé, Drenian Nephilis. The protagonist approaches Brian. He's about to assign him a mission. Brian gives a determined nod, accepting the request. The lion finds it a bit awkward, but it's because Brian feels even more sure of his duty as a guardian. After eating a bit of that dragon, the lion instructs him to inspect the palace's underground corridors. Brian feels a bit nervous but agrees nonetheless. At that moment, Brian notices someone behind the protagonist. Without a second thought, he charges at the suspicious figure. He tackles them to the ground. The protagonist tells him there's no need to worry, because she's someone he knows. Half-conscious, she realizes she's partly to blame for not announcing herself. Meanwhile, in the palace's underground stairway, a mysterious figure descends, reaching a room full of subordinates. He tells them it's time, and one by one they awaken for the hour of blood. Okay, guys, we'll leave it here for today. We'll continue the story in the next video. This series will be made up of several short chapters. Still, if you want to keep reading, check the pinned comment below for more details. If you enjoyed the video, a like and a good comment help me a ton to keep bringing more content. That said, take care and see you next time.